Kickboxing is regarded as one of the best bases for an MMA fighter, with November's title match between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira contested between two men with resounding success in the discipline. Being a star with 8-ounce gloves doesn't guarantee success in MMA. Today, we look at the fighters who switched to the sport and immediately regretted it. Welcome to the INC, and these are 5 kickboxers who flopped in MMA. For nearly 20 years, Gokhan Saki was one of the most feared men in combat sports. Saki has been a mainstay of the sport's upper echelon since 2000, a former K1 World Grand Prix champion and winning Glory's inaugural light heavyweight title in 2014, with his hand speed and knockout power leading him to be nicknamed the Turkish Tyson. A falling out with Glory led to Saki leaving the promotion a year later, before making the surprise decision to sign a 4-fight contract with the UFC despite an obvious lack of MMA experience. Saki had only competed once in the sport in a losing effort to James Zikic, but it didn't stop the UFC booking him against 12-3 Enrique da Silva at Fight Night Tokyo. Saki swarmed his Brazilian opponent with power punches and body shots, but his attempts to finish the fight soon took a toll on his conditioning. By the end of the first round, all momentum seemed to be going the way of da Silva.
Now Saki doesn't look right. His hands are down. He's eating punches and kicks. That is it!
With a performance of the night bonus and the seal of approval from Alistair Overeem, Saki was given a main card slot against Khalil Roundtree at UFC 226, where the Turk realized there's more to defense in MMA than learning how to stuff a takedown.
Boom! Straight down the middle, perfectly placed left hand, and then drops the hammers on him until the fight is stopped.
Unbeknown to those in attendance, the fight would be the last of Saki's MMA career, as the fighter was marred by constant injuries that put him out of several planned return bouts, with Saki eventually requesting his release in October 2021. Saki would return to kickboxing shortly after, scoring a second-round win over former UFC fighter James McSweeney, and currently holds a kickboxing record of 82 wins and 16 losses. Peter Aerts is regarded as one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. Aerts made his debut back in 1993, and since then has beaten a who's who of kickboxing legends, claiming wins over Jerome LeBanner, Andy Hug, and Ernesto Hoost on his way to 3 K1 titles and a further 4 as runner-up. With most of his success coming in Japan, it wasn't a surprise to see Aerts coax to the MMA freak show circuit. And in 2004, he made his debut against former sumo wrestler Wakashoyo. Aerts was taken down by his much larger opponent early in the fight, but a referee stand-up for inactivity allowed Aerts to piece up the sumo for a first-round stoppage. The fight may have led Aerts to believe his MMA lark was easy. Longtime Pride veteran Shungo Oyama put an end to those thoughts.
피터즈 왼쪽 자리 잡았습니다. 경기 끝났나요? 하체 관절기 특징답게 끝나버리고 말았군요. 대박이 됐습니다.
Aerts largely stayed clear of MMA until 2015, when the 45-year-old was coaxed out of retirement for a match with Baruto Kaito for Rizin's inaugural event. Despite his advanced age, most expected Aerts to dominate his Estonian opponent. Instead, the former sumo used his girth to dominate Aerts on the ground on his way to a one-sided decision, although his post-fight call-out of Fedor Emelianenko fell on deaf ears. Aerts has continued to fight sporadically in the years after the match, claiming his most recent win against Jairo Kusunoki in January 2020. Few female strikers are more credentialed than Jorina Barsh. Between 2001 and 2019, Bosch held the distinction of being unbeaten in 50 fights between spells in kickboxing and Muay Thai, claiming the Lion Fight World title on 2 separate occasions, as well as a win over MMA legend Chris Cyborg. In 2011, Bosch decided to dip her toes in the MMA waters, and in March of that year took on Cindy Dandois for the Stare Down promotion in Antwerp. Dandois was one of the most maligned fighters in the sport due to her awkward striking style, but her stand-up failings proved to be a non-factor, taking the fight to the ground early and finishing her outmatched opponent with ground and pound. The match garnered further attention post-fight when it was revealed Dandois had been allowed to compete despite being pregnant. Does this count as a man's advantage? Bosch suffered further losses to Danielle West and Maria Jursa, with each defeat coming the same way, being taken down early and offering little defense off of her back. Bosch later admitted she didn't dedicate her training to the sport and largely took the matches for money. Bosch's sole MMA win came against Alexandra Buch for the MMA B promotion in Germany. Buch looked to follow the game plan of her peers by getting the fight to the mat as soon as possible. This time, however, Bosch was ready for the takedown. Despite being 33 and in her physical prime, Bosch has expressed no interest in returning to MMA. Her career standing at 1 win, 3 losses, and the most surreal MMA math of all time. Ray Seffo's failed MMA run had the biggest long-term impact. Seffo is considered one of the greatest fighters to never win the K1 Grand Prix, thanks to his wins over former champions Jerome LeBanner, Peter Ertz, and Mark Hunt. His flashy footwork, inspired fighting style, earning him the Sugarfoot nickname, which remains to this day. Seffo first dabbled in MMA in 2005, when he took on Olympic medalist Kim Min-soo for Japan's Heroes promotion, the Kiwi introducing himself to the sport in emphatic fashion. Seffo's exploits soon caught the eye of Strikeforce boss Scott Coker, who signed the fighter to a 2-year contract in 2009. After beating UFC veteran Kevin Jordan, Seffo was placed in a reserve bout for the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix, where 50-fight veteran Valentin Overeem took advantage of his limitations on the ground.
And here, this is just like he's got his head like scissored in his forearms, and he's just putting his chin on his chest and just cranking that neck.
Seffo would fight once more in MMA for the burgeoning World Series of Fighting promotion, losing to 19-5 Dave Huckabee in the 3rd round. Despite the setback, the match led Seffo to form connections with the company's top brass, joining their board in 2012 and eventually becoming president of fight operations. In 2018, the company was restructured as the Professional Fight League, with Seffo stating his intention to become MMA's 2nd biggest promotion. There are few kickboxers more notorious than Butter Hari. Hari has been a staple of kickboxing for over 20 years. A former K1 heavyweight champion boasting one of the sport's most dedicated fan bases, but became just as well known for his legal battles outside the ring as his success inside. Those scandals, however, may have taken place in a different field, as just a few months after his kickboxing debut, Hari competed in his sole MMA bout at a Shudo Holland event in 2002. Hari's opponent was Latvian fighter Edmund Kirsis, national judo champion and who'd also trained in amateur wrestling. And obviously he put those skills to good use by finishing Hari 20 seconds into the 1st round. The fight has all but been erased from Hari's history, with the fighter seldom referencing the bout and showing little interest in ever returning to MMA. Kirsis, meanwhile, would amass a 5-7 record, the last fight coming in 2016 after a 9-year absence from the sport. Hari had been riding a 6-fight winless streak entering the fall of this year, and his MMA demons came to haunt him again in the form of Pride and UFC legend Alistair Overeem. And now, time for a few honorable mentions. Joe Schilling traded his Glory middleweight title for a 4-6 record in MMA, although he does hold a win over Dutch legend Melvin Manhoef. Ren Hiramoto has made ropey work of his MMA transition, going 1-2 so far with Rizin. Errol Zimmerman lost his sole MMA bout to Japanese journeyman Ikuhisa Minowa, although I assume the fight was the least embarrassing part of the experience. Hey, this is the INC. Please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video.